Imagine waking up every day excited, driven, and determined to achieve something big. But slowly over time, that energy fades. What happens? Why do we as humans lose our spark when we know we have so much potential? By the end of this speech, you'll not only understand why motivation slips away, but also how to take back control and ignite a fire within that never goes out. The truth is, motivation isn't something that magically appears every morning. It's something we must cultivate, protect, and renew regularly. And here's the catch: understanding why motivation leaves is the first step to keeping it. Stick with me, and I promise you'll leave with powerful insights on how to not only keep your drive alive, but turn it into unstoppable momentum. One of the most powerful reasons people lose motivation is a lack of a clear vision. A vision is like the compass for your life. It directs your actions, guides your decisions, and gives meaning to the everyday grind. Without it, you wander aimlessly, and it's no surprise when motivation starts to fade. When we begin any new project, goal, or challenge, we start with excitement, driven by the potential of what we could achieve. But as time passes and obstacles arise, without a concrete and compelling vision, it's easy to get lost in the journey and start questioning why we're even doing it in the first place. This lack of direction leads to uncertainty. When we don't have a clear picture of what success looks like, the road to that success becomes murky. And in that murkiness, doubt creeps in. We start asking ourselves questions like, is this even worth it? Or am I making any progress? These doubts, no matter how small, can chip away our motivation. It's the same reason why people often give up on New Year's resolutions within weeks. They start out with great enthusiasm, but when they don't have a vivid, long-term vision to keep them grounded, they lose their way. Having a clear vision is more than just setting goals or writing down a to-do list. It's about creating a picture in your mind of who you want to be, where you want to go, and what you want to achieve in your lifetime. It's about finding your why, the deep personal reason that connects you to your goal in a way that makes it meaningful. When you know why you're doing something, when you can visualize the outcome in vivid detail, your motivation is anchored. It becomes a driving force that propels you forward even when the journey gets tough. Think about the great achievers in history. They didn't just have a set of tasks or a vague sense of purpose. They had a vision. Whether it was Martin Luther King Jr., with his dream of equality, or Steve Jobs with his vision of making technology personal, it was the clarity of their vision that kept them moving when faced with challenges. When they stumbled, they didn't quit because their vision was bigger than the momentary setbacks. Vision also helps you focus. In today's world of constant distractions and shifting priorities, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But with a clear vision, you can cut through the noise. You make decisions based on what aligns with your long-term goals, not what feels good in the short term. When you wake up each day with a sense of purpose, your motivation is no longer dependent on fleeting emotions or external circumstances. You're anchored to something much stronger. So if you find yourself feeling demotivated, take a step back and ask yourself, what is my vision? What do I truly want to achieve? And why is it important to me? When you rediscover your vision and make it vivid in your mind, your motivation will have the clarity it needs to push through any obstacle. This is how you stay driven, not just for a few weeks or months, but for the long haul. Fear of failure is one of the most significant barriers to sustained motivation. It's a universal experience, one that affects all of us, no matter how confident or successful we may appear on the surface. The idea of failing, of not meeting our own or others' expectations, can be paralyzing. It leads many people to procrastinate, avoid risks, or quit altogether. But here's the ironic twist: it's often the fear of failure itself, not the failure, that destroys motivation. This fear becomes a wall that prevents us from moving forward, even when the potential for success is far greater than the risk of failure. When we are driven by a fear of failing, we start to focus more on the potential consequences than on the possibility of success. We envision the worst-case scenario: making a mistake, being judged by others, or not achieving what we set out to do. This fear can become so overwhelming that it stops us from even trying. It tells us, what if you fail? What if you're not good enough? And those questions become a soundtrack that plays in our heads, drowning out any thoughts of what we stand to gain. The reality is that failure is part of the process. It's not something that defines us, it's something that teaches us. But when fear takes the wheel, we begin to see failure not as a lesson, but as a threat. This mindset prevents us from taking the necessary risks that could lead to growth and achievement. And without taking action, we lose momentum. Motivation wanes because we're too focused on what might go wrong instead of what might go right. When we let the fear of failure dictate our decisions, we stay stuck in inaction, which in turn leads to frustration and a lack of progress. What's important to understand is that no one achieves great things without experiencing failure along the way. Some of the most successful people have faced rejection, made mistakes, and encountered setbacks. But the difference is that they didn't let fear stop them. Instead, they reframed failure as a stepping stone. They viewed it not as a sign to quit, but as a powerful opportunity to learn and improve. The most successful individuals aren't those who avoid failure at all costs. They're the ones who take the risk and use failure as a tool for growth. When we learn to embrace failure, we unlock a new level of motivation. We stop seeing setbacks as the end of the road and start seeing them as a natural part of the journey. This shift in mindset allows us to move forward with greater confidence because we know that failure doesn't define our worth, it refines our abilities. To overcome the fear of failure, we need to acknowledge it, but not let it control us. It's natural to feel apprehensive about stepping out of our comfort zones. But we must ask ourselves what's worse, the possibility of failure or the regret of never having tried. Once we reframe failure and realize that it's not the opposite of success, but a vital part of it, our motivation will no longer be bogged down by fear. Instead, it will be driven by the belief that every step we take, even the missteps, is one step closer to success. External pressure can be one of the most insidious reasons people lose motivation. It's often subtle, coming from society, family, friends, or even colleagues, but the impact it has on our drive can be overwhelming. This pressure can make us feel like we're not living up to expectations, or worse, that we're not pursuing the right goals. In a world that's constantly measuring success, whether it's through social media, career status, or financial accomplishments, it's easy to become disconnected from what we actually want. Instead of following our own passions and desires, we start chasing goals based on what others think is important or what seems to be the most acceptable path. This external pressure is toxic to motivation because it forces us to work towards things that don't truly resonate with who we are or where we want to go. The drive to impress others, achieve something socially acceptable, or live up to the expectations of those around us can be powerful. Yet when we push ourselves to meet those expectations without considering our personal desires, it creates an internal conflict. We feel disconnected from our work, and that disconnection kills the passion needed to stay motivated. The issue with external pressure is that it often creates a false sense of achievement. We may reach certain milestones like getting a promotion or buying a new car, but once those goals are achieved, the sense of fulfillment is fleeting because they weren't the things that truly mattered to us. You might find yourself asking, is this really what I wanted? Is this all there is? And when that happens, motivation vanishes. We're left feeling empty, as if we've been running a race but didn't really know why we were running in the first place. Moreover, external pressure can cause burnout. When we're constantly trying to meet other people's expectations, we end up putting our mental and physical health on the back burner. The more we chase after goals that don't align with our true desires, the more drained we become. It's easy to lose motivation when the rewards don't feel personal or meaningful. We start to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? What's the point? And without a solid personal reason to keep going, motivation slowly dies. What's crucial to understand is that motivation thrives when it is self-driven. It's not about what others think you should do or what society deems successful. Motivation comes from within, from a deep connection to your personal values and vision. When you align your actions with your authentic self, motivation becomes a natural byproduct of that alignment. You don't need to impress anyone or meet external standards to feel motivated instead. Focus on what truly excites and fulfills you. In the face of external pressure, it's essential to take a step back and reassess your goals. Ask yourself if what you're pursuing is truly yours or if it's a reflection of someone else's dream. Take the time to reconnect with your values and your personal vision. When your motivation comes from a place of genuine passion and self-awareness, no external pressure can break your drive. The moment you stop living for others and start living for yourself is the moment your motivation becomes unstoppable. One of the most demotivating experiences is feeling like you're making no progress. It's frustrating to put in effort day after day, only to feel like you're stuck in place. This sense of stagnation can be incredibly disheartening and can quickly sap your motivation. When you don't see tangible results, it's easy to lose hope and question whether all the hard work is even worth it. This lack of visible progress makes you feel like your efforts are futile. And as a result, the energy and drive to continue can begin to fade away. The issue with a lack of progress is that it leads to a feedback loop of negative emotions. You start to doubt yourself and your abilities. You may even wonder, why should I keep going if nothing's changing? The human mind craves results. When you're working hard but not seeing any outcome, your brain starts signaling that something is wrong. It's difficult to maintain motivation when the payoff seems out of reach or invisible. Without feedback or evidence that you're on the right track, it's all too easy to feel like giving up is the only option. One of the main reasons why progress can feel elusive is the failure to set clear, measurable goals. If your goals are vague or overly ambitious, you're not able to track small wins along the way. Without those incremental achievements, the overall journey feels endless. Take weight loss as an example. If you aim to get fit but have no specific milestones or markers to measure, you could be exercising regularly and eating well, yet feel discouraged because you're not seeing immediate results. Without concrete goals, the small steps you take every day don't seem to count for much, and that can slowly erode your motivation. Another reason for this lack of progress is the overwhelming feeling that success is out of reach. When you look at the gap between where you are and where you want to be, it can feel like an insurmountable mountain. This feeling of being stuck often happens when we set lofty goals without breaking them down into manageable steps. Without breaking down a long-term goal into small, achievable tasks, it's easy to become paralyzed by the magnitude of what needs to be done. You see the finish line in the distance, but have no clear path to get there, which can make every step feel laborious and pointless. What's crucial in overcoming this challenge is the ability to recognize and celebrate small victories. Motivation thrives on progress, no matter how small it may seem. When you acknowledge each little win, whether it's a completed task, a new skill learned, or an obstacle overcome, you create a positive feedback loop that drives you forward. These small achievements add up and gradually build momentum, allowing you to see the path forward clearly again. The key to avoiding the loss of motivation due to a lack of progress is to reframe the way you view your journey. Understand that progress isn't always linear and it doesn't always appear immediately. There will be times when your efforts feel like they're going unnoticed, but if you keep your focus on the long-term vision and track your progress in smaller, more manageable chunks, you will begin to see results. And when those results start to add up, your motivation will reignite, propelling you even further down the path of success. It's in those moments of recognizing small successes that the momentum you need to stay motivated will return. One of the most important factors that can cause people to lose motivation is the lack of reward or recognition. Humans are driven by a fundamental need for acknowledgement. When we put time, effort, and energy into something, we naturally want to see the fruits of our labor, whether in the form of praise, success, or personal satisfaction. This is especially true in environments where people are constantly working hard without being recognized for their contributions. Over time, this lack of validation can lead to burnout, frustration, and ultimately a loss of motivation. When there's no reward or recognition, the effort feels pointless and the desire to continue fades. The absence of rewards doesn't just impact our work performance, it affects our self-esteem. Positive reinforcement is a psychological need. When we are praised for our achievements or given a sense of accomplishment, it boosts our confidence and encourages us to keep going. Without that reinforcement, it's easy to question whether our efforts are even worthwhile. Motivation thrives on the acknowledgement of progress, no matter how small, because it provides a sense of accomplishment. If no one notices our hard work or effort, we may start feeling invisible, and that can be demotivating. A lack of reward or recognition often leads to a sense of inequality. If you're putting in hours of work without any acknowledgement, it can feel like you're being taken for granted, especially if others are recognized for their contributions. This sense of unfairness can lead to frustration and resentment. It's difficult to stay motivated when you feel like your work is being overlooked or undervalued, especially when you're working as hard, if not harder, than others. Over time, this builds a sense of disengagement, and motivation starts to diminish because the reward system feels imbalanced. Moreover, when we don't see tangible rewards, it becomes harder to track our progress. Human beings need feedback to understand whether we're on the right track or if we need to adjust our approach. When that feedback is absent, it's easy to feel like we're spinning our wheels. For instance, if you're working toward a large goal, but there's no recognition for the small steps you're making along the way, it's hard to stay motivated. Without recognition, there's no feedback that tells you you're making strides in the right direction, and that can cause doubt. It leads you to question if you're achieving anything at all. In environments where rewards and recognition are lacking, people may begin to disengage. Why continue working hard if there's no indication that your efforts matter? The brain needs rewards to maintain engagement and motivation, whether it's a pat on the back, a financial incentive, or simply the satisfaction of seeing progress. This can be seen in workplaces where employees are overworked but underappreciated, leading to high turnover rates and low morale. The lack of recognition creates a toxic environment where motivation is stifled and people feel disconnected from their purpose. To combat this loss of motivation, it's essential to create a system of recognition that's both meaningful and consistent. Whether you're working alone or part of a team, taking the time to acknowledge your own achievements or recognizing others is crucial for maintaining motivation. Even small gestures, like acknowledging progress, can reignite the drive to keep moving forward. When people feel appreciated, they are more likely to remain engaged and committed. The same principle applies to self-recognition. When you take time to celebrate your own milestones and progress, no matter how small, you reinforce the motivation to keep going. Without reward or recognition, motivation becomes a fleeting feeling, but with it, motivation becomes a continuous source of energy that drives you toward your goals.